For Christmas, my parents gifted me a book called How to Grow Up. My sister, on the other hand, unwrapped plane tickets to Europe. So I took their advice and acted accordingly. By the next morning, they were calling in a panic. Now I know what you're probably thinking. Maybe it was a sweet book, an uplifting memoir full of hopeful lessons and a soft pastel cover. But no, not even close. It was a flimsy paperback featuring a cartoon woman in her 30s clutching a juice box and a glitter wand while overdue bills fluttered around her head. The subtitle, Stop Being a Toddler in an Adult Body. Charming, right? It was the kind of book HR departments hand out at mandatory training sessions. The type that comes with a wink and a smug, "This reminded me of you." Except this time, my parents weren't joking. My mom was already halfway through telling my sister how she had also bought a copy for a coworker who still uses smiley faces in professional emails. Gasp. The horror. Meanwhile, my sister was busy tearing open a glossy envelope from beneath the tree. It was thick, cream-colored, and practically radiating importance. I didn't need to squint to spot the airline logo across the top. Barcelona. She let out a dramatic gasp. Seriously? My parents lit up with pride. "We thought you deserved another opportunity to grow your international network," my dad said, sounding more like he was sending her on a peacekeeping mission than sponsoring her third research trip of the year. "To help your career flourish," my mom chimed in. Then, as if it had just crossed her mind, she turned to me and added, "And maybe this book will help yours take off too." I smiled. I always do that when I'm trying to keep from crying, screaming, or laughing in a way that might be interpreted as unwell. I wish I could say this was the first time something like this had happened, but if my life were a holiday movie, it'd be called A Very One-Sided Christmas. Last year, my sister received a brand new MacBook for school. I got a laminated to-do list for reorganizing the garage, written by hand, in Comic Sans. I'm used to being the afterthought. I work full-time at a kindergarten. It's loud, sticky, occasionally unhinged, and unlike my family, it never tries to pretend it's something it's not. My days are spent comforting tearful kids, mediating toy-related hostage crises, and pretending not to notice when someone eats glitter glue. I used to work children's parties on weekends, too. Balloon animals, fairy wings, the full magical package. "You're the only person I know who owns 6 pairs of sparkly wings and still no winter coat," my sister once teased. My parents always referred to it as the clown job, even though I've never, ever dressed as a clown, because I have standards, and I also care about the emotional well-being of children. I don't do as many parties these days, not because I've grown out of them, but because I don't have the time. Most of my weekends are now spent watching my sister's daughter, free of charge, of course. Because, as my mom likes to say, it takes a village. Apparently, I am that village. The whole thing. The babysitter, the therapist, the emergency contact, and the stand-in pediatrician when the real one's out of town. So when they handed me that book, with its smug little cartoon woman throwing a tantrum, I didn't say anything. I didn't cry. I didn't flip the coffee table, or dramatically storm out, like I might have fantasized about on particularly bad Mondays. I just smiled, and then I took a sip of the lukewarm cocoa I'd made for everyone and wondered how I could be 31 years old and still feel like a 10-year-old in my own family. After the gifts dinner happened, it was one of those potluck-style meals where my contributions were homemade and heartfelt, and my sister brought store-bought cranberry sauce that still got more praise than my rosemary roasted potatoes at one point. My dad actually said, "Wow, Amelia, this cranberry sauce is delicious. Did you make it yourself?" She blinked. "No, I literally opened a can." He laughed, like she just told the joke of the year. "You've always been the practical one." I nearly choked on my potatoes later. I offered to help clean up, of course. And my mom handed me a trash bag and said, "You've always been good at this stuff. That's what I admire about you. You're not too proud to do the little jobs I wanted to." Ask what they thought my job was. If taking care of 25 preschoolers and keeping them from biting, gluing, or beaning each other with toy dinosaurs wasn't real enough, then what was? But I didn't, because this was Christmas, and because I knew the answer. They didn't see me as grown. They saw me as dependable, cheerful, silly, the helper, the extra set of hands. I wasn't ambitious. I wasn't important. I was nice, and nice people in this family got assigned cleanup duty that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling of my tiny rented room above a nail salon. I could still hear the giggle of my niece from earlier when I'd made her a reindeer puppet out of paper plates and red pom-poms. Her laughter echoed louder in my chest than anything my parents had said all day. That's when it hit me. They gave me a book on growing up, like it was some clever little jab, but maybe they were right, not in the way they thought, not in a get a real job kind of way, not in a stop acting like a child kind of way, but in a start acting like an adult who deserves respect kind of way. So I got up, brushed the glitter off my floor, sat down at my desk, and I started drafting a message, just a simple one, kind, polite, firm. No passive aggression, no sarcasm, just clear boundaries. I let my sister know I'd be stepping back from regular babysitting starting in the new year. I was happy to be an aunt, but I couldn't continue giving up every weekend, especially not when it meant sacrificing my time, energy, and sanity. I also informed her gently that I would no longer be contributing to her travel fund or tuition. I had my own future to plan for. I wished her well, told her I believed in her dreams. Then I sent a second message to my parents, thanking them for the book, letting them know it had really made me think. I didn't say anything about how it made me feel. I didn't need to, because the next morning their calls started, and I let them go to voicemail. As I had work, as I had kids who actually saw me, as I had a life, and because for the first time in a long time, I was finally growing up on my own terms. I didn't expect a standing ovation or anything, but I also didn't expect 6 missed calls, 2 voicemails, and a group text from my mom that said, "We're just very surprised this feels out of character. Please reconsider for the sake of the family." Out of character. You know what else was out of character? Giving your child a passive-aggressive self-help book as a Christmas gift and expecting her to keep washing your dishes and raising your other child like a living nanny with glitter allergies. But sure, I was the problem. Now I didn't answer. Not that day, not the next, either. I figured they could sit with it. They were big on natural consequences. When I was a kid, seemed fair to let them experience one. The irony is, if you ask my parents or even my sister, they'd probably tell you. I had a perfect childhood stable home, no screaming, good schools, no tragedy to pin anything on. What they never noticed was that some of the deepest bruises don't leave visible marks. They just get passed off as jokes or parenting styles and buried under years of subtle neglect. When I was 7, I told my parents I wanted to be a fairy when I grew up. Not a princess, not a ballerina fairy. I had a whole speech prepared. I believed it with my whole heart. My dad laughed so hard he dropped his fork. "Maybe aim for something with dental insurance," he said. And my mom said, "She'll change her mind. They always do." I never did. The fairy dream became early childhood education. The sparkly wings became puppet shows and story time and messy art projects that made kids light up like Christmas trees. But to them, it was all the same, a phase, an adorable detour on the way to something more respectable with my sister. Amelia always knew what she wanted. Success. Glossy success. Structured spreadsheet worthy. Internationally certified success. She had a LinkedIn page at 16, took debate team. So seriously, she practiced arguing. With herself in the mirror, she won awards for writing essays on topics she didn't care about. She was good at performance, just not the kind with puppets and crayons when she said she wanted to study international relations. My parents clapped like someone had just announced she'd cured polio. "She's going to change the world," they'd say dramatically. She got grants, internships, scholarships, and when those ran dry, she got me. At first, it was small, helping cover her student visa fees just until my next check clears, she said. Then it was textbooks. Then it was her trip to Berlin for a networking symposium that looked suspiciously like a yoga retreat with tapas. Then childcare, that one was a little more permanent. She had her baby Elodie 2 years ago. I was thrilled. I love that little human, like she's my own. But loving her doesn't mean I agreed to parent her while her actual parents were jetting off to build career connections in Lisbon. It started slowly, just for an hour, while I run errands just this Saturday so we can go out just for the weekend. We haven't had a trip in forever, and somehow just became, always I missed birthday parties for kids at work so I could stay home with Elodie. I canceled dates. I stopped taking party gigs because my weekends weren't mine anymore. Once I mentioned maybe starting up again, my mom said, "Oh, honey, that's not a real business. That's like playing dress up." She said it, while I was holding her grandchild who was literally wearing a sparkly tutu and calling me fairy auntie. The irony was lost on her. But the worst part, I let it happen. I let it all happen because I thought that's what being good meant. Being good meant helping, being needed, being useful, even if it meant being invisible. That's what I'd been trained to be since I was little. When Amelia got an A, they framed her report card. When I won a storytelling contest at school dressed as a dinosaur, they told me not to show off when Amelia said she wanted to work in diplomacy. They cleared out the guest room and turned it into a study when I said I wanted to work with children. They asked if I'd at least consider getting a backup degree. They didn't see me. They saw my job title and cringed. They saw my glitter and thought it meant I hadn't grown up. But I've wiped more noses, handled more meltdowns, and mediated more toddler feuds than most CEOs deal with in a boardroom. I just do it in sneakers and paint splattered aprons instead of suits. I didn't grow up to be a fairy. I grew up to be someone who makes kids feel safe, who notices when they're quietly sad, who turns scraps into dragons and hugs into confidence. But that didn't fit their definition of success, so when they said grow up, what they really meant was be more like her, more like Amelia, and I almost believed them. I almost believed that being cheerful made me immature, that having a deep love for children made me foolish, that being helpful somehow made me less valuable. That is, until this year, until that book, until the moment I understood that growing up didn't mean dimming parts of myself. It meant embracing more of who I truly was, only with boundaries. So I started carving out space for myself. That week after Christmas, I didn't babysit, didn't offer, didn't even hint that I might be available. When Amelia mentioned she needed to run a quick errand, I kindly said no. And when she reminded me they had a dinner event Friday night, I just responded, "Hope it's amazing. Maybe next time." She never texted back. I also stopped sending money. No dramatic announcement. I just stopped. No warnings, no explanations. I let the silence speak for itself. And by Thursday, judging from the texts I got, it had spoken loud and clear. "Emma, you've always been so giving. It stings a little that you're choosing now to pull away. Dad. We're concerned about you. This sudden distance is worrying. Amelia." So I guess that was it. I was on my own now. Funny how the moment you stop being everyone's unpaid assistant, they act like you've gone rogue. But here's the truth. I wasn't withdrawing. I was asserting myself, claiming my time, protecting the joy I'd been slowly draining just to keep everyone else content. And somewhere in that shift, I started laughing again. Not the forced, polite kind of laughter, not the smile through the burn type, but actual, body-shaking, genuine laughter. Like when my coworker spilled juice on her pants and turned it into a spontaneous water safety demonstration. Or when one of my students said, "I love you more than jelly beans, but not more than outer space." That kind of joy doesn't come from always being agreeable. It comes from honesty, from choosing the kind of grown-up you want to be, even if that means owning 6 pairs of fairy wings and keeping a glitter inventory in a spreadsheet. The first real wave of panic came in the family group chat. "Mom, quick question. Are you available this weekend to watch Elodie? Amelia and Marcus have plans. It won't take long." Me. "Sorry, I've got plans." Amelia. "Plans? Or one of your fairy parties?" Me. "Neither. Just unavailable." Dad. "That's disappointing. We were really relying on you." Relying on me? Like I'm a microwave or a shoehorn? No mention of the 100 weekends I'd already sacrificed. Just the assumption I'd always be available. But that weekend I went to the zoo, alone. And I had the time of my life. I fed giraffes, ate overpriced cotton candy, and cracked up when a toddler chucked a shoe into the meerkat exhibit and declared, "That's my offering." Nobody asked anything of me. Nobody accused me of being childish. No one handed me a baby and said, "Be a good girl and watch her for a second." I didn't even share it online. I kept it all for myself. Of course, the peaceful afterglow of giraffe feeding lasted exactly 36 hours. Because Monday morning, I arrived at work to 3 missed calls from my dad, and one voicemail that opened with, "We're deeply hurt." Always a promising opener. Apparently, Amelia had tried to hire a paid babysitter for Saturday night. Her words, not mine. And it fell through some teen with a fake resume and a nose ring, backed out last minute. And rather than cancel her networking cocktail mixer, she left Elodie with Marcus's cousin. The cousin, bless his soul, forgot to change Elodie's diaper for 5 hours, taught her how to say screw this and let her eat whipped cream straight from the can, my parents were horrified. Do you know how much stress Amelia's under? My mom said she doesn't need this kind of betrayal. Betrayal, that was the word, like I'd stolen state secrets or abandoned a kitten in the snow. I didn't even respond. I just stared at my phone and slowly peeled a Paw Patrol sticker off my notebook while breathing through my nose. The next time Amelia texted, it wasn't a request, it was a statement. Amelia, we need to talk, Mom said. You've been weird lately. Also, I noticed my tuition deposit hasn't gone through. Are you behind, or I? Laughed. Actually laughed out loud in the teacher's lounge, where two of my coworkers immediately leaned in. Like they just heard the first line of a soap opera. I'm not behind. I texted back. I just stopped. She called me immediately. You what? I stopped sending money. You can't just do that without warning. I'm in the middle of applying for this Geneva program, and I'm not your sponsor, Amelia. I'm your sister. She was quiet for one blessed second. Then she scoffed. This is about the stupid book, isn't it? Elmo said yes. That would have been the easy answer, but the truth is the book was just the last straw. A little badly designed paperback balancing on top of a mountain of unpaid babysitting, passive-aggressive comments, and emotional invisibility. It's not about the book, I said, it's about everything. What's everything, you? I said, and Mom and Dad, and how none of you take me seriously. Unless I'm being useful, how my job's a joke to you, but my free labor is apparently sacred, how I've paid thousands to support your education and your trips while you roll your eyes at mine, like I'm some fairy tale dropout. Oh my God, she muttered. You're being dramatic. There was the classic Amelia shutdown, the same voice she used when we were kids, and I cried. After she cut the head off my favorite stuffed unicorn. You're so sensitive, you're just emotional. Grow up, you're not entitled to my money, I said quietly, and you're not entitled to my time. I love Ellie, but I'm not your nanny. She hung up. Honestly, that was kind of a win, until the escalation began. 2 days later, my mom showed up at my work. Unannounced. Full coat, heels, scarf. The whole. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Look, in real life, I was cleaning up after a glittercraft explosion. When I saw her standing in the hallway, eyes scanning the walls like she was trying to find something criminal in our crayon. Drawn whales and construction paper owls. Can we talk? She said. I blinked. Right now. She smiled tight. Just a moment. I stepped into the hallway, still holding a glue stick. Your sister's very upset, she began. She says you're being cold, and I have to say, I agree. I said nothing. She looked around, then added, I know you enjoy this environment, but maybe it's time to think about the bigger picture. You're not a teenager anymore. I looked down at the glue stick in my hand. You know what's funny? I said. Every day I tell my kids that their feelings matter, that they deserve respect, that it's okay to say no. She blinked, and I really believe that, I added. Even if I have sparkles on my pants while I'm saying it, she stared at me, like I just recited Shakespeare in ancient Greek. I'm not being cold, I said. I'm being clear. That's what growing up means, setting limits, protecting your peace, choosing how you want to live, and abandoning your family. Oh, I said, just stepping out of unpaid servitude. She opened her mouth, but I walked back into my classroom because snack time was sacred and my kids didn't judge me for not buying plane tickets to Europe. The next few weeks were quiet, tense, weirdly quiet. No requests, no invites, just silence until the party. Elodie's birthday. I didn't get an invitation. What I got was a Facebook post, Elodie in a bouncy castle holding a cake twice her size, while Amelia and Marcus posed next to her in coordinated pastels. The caption read, Some families are born, others show up. I wasn't tagged, neither was. Anyone from my side of the family, I sat with that for a while, like really sat with it on the couch in silence, eating popcorn I didn't even want. Then I got up and I booked a small venue. Then I pulled out my boxes of costumes and decorations and puppets. I messaged a few parents from work. I called in a few favors. And the next weekend I threw a party, a magical, colorful, chaotic sparkle. Filled birthday celebration just for a lady, just me. And her. No politics, no manipulation, just love. We made crowns, we had a puppet show. I let her spray glitter confetti with zero restraint. She hugged me so hard at the end, I thought I'd fall over. Best birthday ever, she whispered. I didn't cry. I just smiled and said, that's what aunties are for. No strings, no guilt. Just magic, and this time I got to be the grown-up. The trouble started with a voice note. It was barely 10 seconds long. Sent to Amelia from Elodie's iPad, which she mostly used to watch cartoons and accidentally call random. Contacts in the background. You could hear her tiny voice yelling, fairy party, fairy party, no boring party, no boring cake, and then just barely audible my laugh. She'd been reenacting her birthday weekend ever since it ended, running around in the sparkly tutu I gave her, holding up a glitter wand, demanding more sparkles, and asking where the singing dragon went. I should have expected Amelia wouldn't take it well. At first, she texted me something vague. Amelia? She's confused. Keeps talking about your party, like it was the real one, not helpful. Then Amelia, your sister's upset. Elodie keeps asking for you and calling our party boring. This is not okay. It didn't escalate until someone, probably Elodie, using her wildly chaotic toddler logic, told her, daycare teacher, my mama's party, boring, my fairy auntie party fun. She even tried to stuff one of my glitter stickers into her cubby, announcing it was for next time, thought it was funny. Amelia thought it was treason. Next thing I knew, I got a call from my boss. Apparently someone, no names, but I could guess, had contacted the center asking if any children had ever been removed from class without authorization. By a staff member, they were fishing. I sat there in the staff room surrounded by paper, snowflakes, and juice boxes trying to breathe. I hadn't done anything wrong. I had proof. I pulled up the text messages me. Hey, just confirming for Saturday, same drop-off time as last year. Amelia, sure. Just keep it simple. No need to go overboard me, all clear. To do it at the community hall. Amelia, fine. Just text me the address, all of it in writing, all of it clear. But that didn't stop the whispers. It didn't stop my aunt from calling me to ask if I was doing okay, emotionally. It didn't stop my dad from leaving a voicemail, where he said, you know, we could have gone to the police. We chose not to think about that. Think about that. I stared at the wall for a long time after that message. Then I got up, made tea, and opened. A new folder on my desktop proof, in case they lose their minds again. Inside the full text thread, the party rental receipt, the RSVP. Amelia had texted the night before with, we'll drop her off around 11. Thanks again. Then I wrote the email, hi Amelia. Since I'm now hearing from others that you're suggesting I took Elodie without permission, I've attached a full record of your written consent if this continues, or if my workplace receives another false inquiry, I'll be consulting legal counsel. I love Elodie, but I will not tolerate being slandered for hosting a party. You approved, Besme. She didn't respond, but my mom did. This is family, not court. You're being cold again. Please come talk it through. Not falsely accused or defamed, just cold. They always made my pain a temperature issue. If I stayed calm, I was icy. If I showed emotion, I was too sensitive. There was no correct setting for me to exist in. Meanwhile, Elodie kept asking for me. Her daycare teacher texted me, she tried to call you on a playphone today, said she was going to invite you to her party, part 2. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled, then cried, but I didn't reach out, not even when Amelia posted a photo of Elodie playing in the backyard with the caption, home is where the real family is. Not even when my parents posted a joint message on Facebook about misguided family members who think children are toys to be won, I said nothing, because I didn't need to fight lies with more noise. I had the truth, and apparently I had backup. A week later, my uncle called the good one, the only one who once brought me cake on a random Tuesday, and said, you matter more than they let on. You know, I saw your mom's post, he said. Everyone's talking. It's ridiculous, I sighed. I didn't do anything wrong. I know, he said, we all know. Apparently my grandma had called Amelia to ask what the problem was. Amelia hung up. My cousin messaged me privately. I saw the party photos. Elodie looked so happy. You're amazing with her. And then without fanfare, without warning, I got a DM from one of Amelia's friends, someone I'd only met once. Hey, I know it's not my place, but I just wanted to say the way they've been talking about you, it's not okay if you ever need someone to back you up. I'm here. It was a small message, but it felt enormous. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't the villain. I was just the first one to say no. That weekend, I booked 3 new party clients' parents who'd seen photos from the fairy party and wanted something similar. One of them said, "We've had the usual bounce house and clown, but this feels like actual joy, and maybe that was the difference." Amelia's party had been Pinterest. Perfect coordinated balloons, expensive cake, hired photographers. Mine had been messy, homemade, loud, glorious, and real. That following Monday, I found a letter in the mail. Amelia's handwriting filled the envelope. Inside was a brief note. I overreacted. I was scared. It hurt seeing Ellie so happy without me. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm sorry. If you want distance, I get it, but if you ever want to see her again, I hope you'll let me know. I folded the letter. I didn't forgive her right then and there. That kind of healing takes time, but I did write back. I love Elodie. I'll always be glad to see her, but I won't participate in a family dynamic that turns love into leverage. If we're going to rebuild anything, it has to begin with honesty. She never responded to that. But 3 weeks later, I received a video. Elodie was dancing in the tutu I gave her, twirling in circles, glitter spinning around her like stardust. At the end of the clip, she stopped mid-spin, looked into the camera, and waved. "I love my fairy auntie," she said. I didn't cry. I smiled. Because I no longer felt the need to defend myself. They had tried to reduce me to a label, but I built something stronger in its place. It's been 3 years now. Elodie is 5, chatty, endlessly creative, currently convinced she's half unicorn. I see her often. Her parents aren't thrilled about it, but they tolerate it because she adores me. And even they can't deny what we have is real. Plus, if we're being honest, they need the break. Amelia eventually earned her degree, though it didn't come easy without my financial support. She had to cut back on travel, say no to unpaid career-boosting gigs, and take out a pretty big loan. It was tough at first, juggling coursework, a toddler, and no longer having unlimited weekend help. But she managed, she stumbled, she adjusted, and, in her own imperfect way, she grew too. She's working now. It's not glamorous, not international, certainly not the kind of thing she used to brag about at holiday dinners. But it's hers. She's making it work, just not from a pedestal anymore. As for my parents, we keep things distant, a few obligatory messages here and there. They still don't really understand. They think I blew everything out of proportion, and they've never once given a true apology. Only silence, followed by the occasional guilt-laced message like, "Your sister's doing her best. We all miss how things were." But here's the truth, I don't. The life I have now, it's mine. I run a small business, hosting creative workshops for kids. There's a 2-month wait list for birthday parties. I get invited regularly to speak at early childhood education events. I even hired a part-time assistant. Her name's Bree, and she's already better at balloon animals than I'll ever be. I still wear glitter, still tell stories, still use silly voices and walk around with paint in my hair. But now nobody calls it childish. They call it booked and thriving. And yes, sometimes I still ask myself, did I go too far? But then I remember how calm my life is now, and I wonder if maybe I didn't draw the line too soon, but too late. So what do you think? Was I wrong to draw boundaries when I did, or should I have done it earlier? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever had to choose your peace over someone else's comfort, hit like and subscribe. Trust me, you're not the only one.